Hey guys, welcome to another video, and today I will help all my new Riven players to get a better start into learning Riven. I will shortly go over Riven's abilities and how to use them and what to skill, and then I will go over all the important combos and mechanics you should learn and practice in the beginning. And after that I will talk about on what lanes you can play Riven and which runes you should use depending on the lane. And I will also talk a little bit about how you can change your runes depending on the matchup. After this video, hopefully you stop inting most of your games. Probably not, but yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into it. So her passive is called Runic Blade. Whenever Riven uses an ability, her passive gets one stack of a maximum of 3, and each stack empowers her next auto attack. So don't just spam your abilities and hope to deal damage, because Riven's main damage is on her empowered auto attacks. So try to use auto attacks after every ability if possible. How you can do that is a thing I will go over later in the video. Let's talk about Riven's Q ability. Her Q is called Broken Wing, and you can activate it 3 times to deal damage and dash, and the last Q will knock enemies up if they're in range. Riven will always dash towards the direction she's looking at, unless you hover your cursor above a target, then she will dash towards that hovered target. Upon reaching the target, she will start queuing in place and stop dashing if you keep hovering the target. And another important thing about the Q is that the cooldown will start with the first Q. That means if you delay the Qs, she can reduce the downtime of her Q. Delaying your Q is a good way to always have 3 passive stacks up, and the dash if you should need one to disengage or engage a fight. So you should practice to delay your Q as much as possible so you can get the most out of it. So you should also know that Riven's Q resets her auto attack timer. This is pretty useful because this is how you do the fast combo. The fast combo is basically just auto attacking after every Q and cancelling her auto attack animation to get the damage out as fast as possible. Another gimmicky and cool thing with Riven is that you can jump over terrain, inhibs and towers with her Frit Q, which actually saved my life like probably 1,000 times already. It is kind of hard to pull off in the beginning, and it's even harder to pull off when the enemy is chasing you and you are low life. But if you get it down like 2 or 3 times in a real game, you will get used to it and it will be muscle memory. More to that later in the video though. Now to the W ability. It's called Key Burst. It does a bit of damage and stuns everyone around you. There's nothing special to this ability besides being important in some double cast one-shot combos or to disengage from an enemy that is chasing you. So now to Riven's E ability. It's called Valor, and it's basically just a dash that gives you a shield. But the cool thing about the E ability is that it lets you double cast abilities, so you can use 2 abilities at the same time. Mechanical things you should know about the E is that you almost never want to use E and then W right after that, unless you want to double cast something, because if you use your E and stun the enemy, your shield will not absorb anything because the enemy is stunned, obviously. I think you are stunned for like 0.75 seconds and you get a shield for 1.5 seconds, so you basically lose 50% of your shield because the enemy could not deal damage to you because he was stunned off your W. So try to use your E and W separately. Now to the final ability, her ultimate. It's called Blade of the Exile. It has 2 active parts. The first one is that Riven will gain more attack damage, which also increases Q and W damage and amount of shield she gets from her E. And you also get extra range on your auto attacks and Qs and Ws. That's really important. I know a lot of people don't know that, but your Q and W also have way more range if you have your ultimate up. So in conclusion, if you use Riven's first part of the ultimate, she gains more damage and more AoE range with her abilities. The second part of her ultimate is Wind Slash, where she unleashes a wave of wind, I guess. It will deal 80 damage that increases based on the missing health of your target. It will not execute though, it just deals more damage the lower the enemy is. Because of that, the best case scenario to use your Wind Slash is if you finish your combo with it, because this is when your enemy will be the lowest. Unless you know that your Wind Slash will deal enough damage to finish your opponents earlier, then you can just throw it out earlier, of course. Another thing I saw with a lot of new Riven players is that they just activate the R just to get the Wind Slash out because they want to finish the enemy. But the real damage doesn't really come from her Wind Slash. The main damage from the ultimate is actually just from the empowered auto attacks and the empowered Qs. So it's always better to activate your ultimate too early than too late. Never wait for the perfect opportunity because it will never come actually. And you have a pretty low cooldown on your ultimate, so don't be too careful with it. Now let's quickly go over what abilities to skill in which order. A lot of people always skill Q into E and W, which is not wrong but also not right to do it every game blindly, because depending on your matchup and your intentions in the lane, you can skill Q into W and then E, which is way better in some situations. Before you go in the comments and tell me that I'm stupid and bad, please let me explain, and then go in the comments and tell me that I'm stupid and bad. Thank you. So why and when should you skill your W second? It's fairly easy if you have an opponent that is weak at level 1 and can trade with him only using your Qs and auto attack in a way where he will end up around 40 to 50% HP. Then when you hit level 2, you can skill W, flash onto him, and then finish him with a stun, fast combo and ignite, because the W will help you get your combo off and will give you extra damage to finish him. So in this case, you don't really need the shield from the E, and you can't really double cast anything with the E because you just have 2 abilities. So going with W and then flashing onto the enemy and stunning him and then trying to kill him can sometimes get you an early kill. But when it comes to maxing order, I would still stick to Q max into E and then into W. But if you need more wave clear, you could go with maxing W, but I would not really recommend that for now. So now to the section most of you probably have been waiting for. It's the combo section. And first things first, please, in the love of God, don't start learning flashy and long combos. It will take you way too long to learn them because you don't have the fundamentals for it. And the more important thing is that you don't even need most of the combos 90% of your games. So just stick to the basics and get comfortable with the combos I'm going to show you. And if you can hit them 9 out of 10 times in a real game, nope, not in a practice tool, in a real game with all the adrenaline flowing through your body, then you can slowly start learning cool and fancy combos. Emphasis on slowly. Oh, and before we start with the combos, you should know that Riven has a fuck ton of skins, which sometimes can make her feel smoother, which can help you in performing combos more regularly. More regularly. Oh, this word is insane. I know it sounds crazy, but you will know what I mean after I used her Dawnbringer skin for the first time. Oh, I also made a skin tier list about all her skins where I talk a bit about that, so check it out if you wish. But now let's start with the first combo. So now to the main combo on Riven. It's called the fast combo. But before I show you the fast combo, I want to tell you what the best way is to get Riven's damage out. And it's basically just auto-attacking, queuing, auto-attacking, queuing, auto-attacking, queuing, and auto-attacking again. Because you use all your passive stacks and all your Qs. But as you saw, it's slow as hell. That's why we have the fast combo. It's just the same thing, but the damage comes out faster. Basically, you put a movement command after every Q. I will first show you the full combo, and after that, I will show you the separate parts of it.
My hands are stained.
Yeah, that's basically it. I know it doesn't look flashy and cool, but that's the most important part about playing Riven. And before I show you how you do that combo, just go into your settings, scroll down and activate bind auto attack, move to left click. That will make that if you press left click in the area of an enemy, she will automatically start attacking. For example, if I'm back here and I press left click behind him, he will automatically run to the nearest target and attack it. So I moved this little guy over here against the wall, so because it becomes easier to show you and also it becomes easier to practice for yourself. So how do we do the combo? It's basically just canceling her auto attack animation. So you basically walk up to your target and auto attack him, and then you go with the visual or sound cue. Most people prefer sound cue, which I also would recommend going for. And after you hear the sound that you hit him, you're just gonna press Q and hover above your target. See how you still get the damage through the auto attack, which is shown with the 166 damage, but I still get my Q in between. If you do it too early, if I Q too early twice, there will be one auto attack missing. So auto attack, you hear the indicator, you press Q. Indicator, Q. Indicator, Q. Indicator, Q. That's it basically for the first part of the combo. So after you get that down, it's time to cancel the Q animation. And that is done by a movement command. A movement command is just moving. Most people will go for one step back and then using the left click to auto attack him again. If you do it slow, it should look like this. You go, you auto attack, you Q, you step back, you left click, you auto attack, you Q, you step back, you auto attack, you Q, and you step back. That's why left click is so important. If I do it with right click, for example, you go in, you auto attack, and then you miss him, and then you miss the auto attack because you just walked instead of auto attacking. So that's why you need that left click. It's basically just 3 steps. It's pressing left click to attack, pressing Q to cancel the auto attack animation, and then pressing your movement command to cancel your Q animation. Start slow, but slowly, really slowly start picking up the pace. So in the end, it should look something like this.
Violence to end violence.
You have to hit every auto attack between the Qs because that's the important part. That's why I'm telling you to do it slowly. After you got that down, fast comboing against the wall, try to put the dummy away into an open field so it can move. It will be a bit more realistic and it will be harder to hover your cursor above it. So now you can try to always be on the target if you Q. Because if you should miss and you Q away, you will mess up your combos. Another cool thing about the fast Q combos is that you can actually do it while dashing through your enemies to dodge skill shots. That's really important in some matchups like Aatrox or Urgot. So you don't really need it now, but I think it's nice to know. It's basically the same thing, but every time you use your Q, you don't hover the target, you hover behind him or wherever you want to dodge.
Burdens of the past.
So the next mechanic or combo I want to show you is the double cast. I personally think it's the second most important mechanic. Firstly, you can use it nearly in any situation. And second, it is a big part of the bigger and longer combos on Riven. So get it down as fast as possible. And I personally think it's way easier to learn than fast comboing. And it's a bit more fun actually. So what is a double cast, guys? It's basically just using Riven's E, that's this thing here, to cast 2 abilities at the same time. Before I go into detail, I will show you how it looks. Now I will double cast my Q and W into each other. This one, this ability. If I use my W and Q normally without double casting, she will do it after another. So she will do it like that, which is a big time waste. You can basically just cancel the time wasting part of it and do it at the same time. It will look like this. So as you saw, I did my W and my Q at the same time. You can see he's stunned and I dash through him. If I do it without the E, it will just look like this, where she Ws and then dashes through the enemy. So how does it work? Well, it's actually pretty easy. You just need to get the timing down, and if you manage to do it like 3 to 4 times, you will get the hang of it. The most important thing is that you have your E up, so your dash. That's the key ability in every double cast. You're just gonna press E. After that, you're gonna press W and Q. You're gonna first press W and then Q. Don't rush it. Don't spam EWQ instantly, because then your window in which you can double cast is way too short. For example, if I spam EWQ now, she will stand still in W because I missed the timing. It's way easier if you just press E and then do the double cast. Just wait a bit. Press E, take few steps, and then use your double cast. You can press W and Q almost at the same time, but try to press W first. There's not much of explaining to do. Just go into practice and try it out. It's actually fairly easy. There are a lot of double cast combos. For example, we got EWQ, which is the combo I used as an example. There's also E into arc and Q, so you can hide the animation of your ultimate, because if Riven ults, she like stands still and then has like this one animation where she goes in like 1 foot and then she pulls out her sword. So you can actually hide that animation if you use E into R and then Q. It's the same thing. You press E and then you use R and Q. You see how I hit my R animation? I didn't stand still, and the enemy sometimes doesn't even see that you ulted. So let me show it to you again. E and then R into Q. She spins, you get the Q damage, and you have your ultimate out and can start doing your combo. On a target, it would look like this. If you want to go all in, that's actually the way to go. E, R into Q. And after you got the double cast down, try to implement an auto attack right before you double cast. So you press E, auto attack, and then you double cast. Let me show it with the ultimate. You press E, and you put an auto attack before you double cast. There's another important double cast combo, which includes hopping a wall. But before I explain that, I'm gonna show you how to jump over a wall. So as an example, I'm a Riven on mid lane, playing Riven mid lane assassin, and I see my jungler fighting over here with the enemy jungler, and my wave is pushed in, so I don't have a lane prio. And my enemy mid laner is going to help his jungler, and I want to also help my jungler, but I don't want to take the long route or go up here. So you can just walk up, use your Qs, and then just walk to this wall and press again your third Q to jump over it. It is easy if you do it on practice tool, because you have a lot of time to line yourself up with this wall here and then press Q. But it's basically just using your first 2 Qs and then walking up to wall and then just choosing your third Q. So don't try to walk too diagonally to the wall. It's still possible to third Q like this, but it makes it a bit harder in the beginning. This wall is a easy one, but there are harder ones. I think you can even jump over this here. I'm pretty sure you can. Yes, you can see. You can also jump the chicken wall. It's a bit harder. If you want a harder jump, you can do this one. You see how I use my E to make it a bit easier? You can use your E to make wall hops easier, to line up yourself. You see how I use my E to jump over the wall? Using your E makes it a bit easier because you come as close as you can to the wall, which is important. If you want wall up, don't try to wall up from back here because it won't work. Like if I try to wall up from here, it's not gonna work. You have to stay right in front of the wall, but that's why E can help you wall up easier, because it instantly lines you up and puts you right in front of the wall. So if you should have struggle getting a wall up done, just use your E for it. Wall hopping also is really good if you need defensively. So if I get chased and I'm low, I can just hop this wall and I'm gone. Ew, stop. Remember the double cast I showed you like probably 2 minutes ago with the E into R and Q? We're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna use our third Q and then double cast our ultimate into it. So we're gonna jump over the wall and have our ultimate up. A Q, Q, walk to the wall, and then press R and Q again. So I hop over the wall and I have my ultimate ready. When would you need that? It's when, for example, here's a team fight and you want to, and you see there are like 2 people low and you want to enter the fight with your ultimate up. You can just stack your Qs and then just press E, R, and third Q to do the wall hop. And then you can easily use a wind slash to finish the targets off. Now to some important facts about double casting that you should know before you start double casting anything and everything. Double casting is mostly used to finish a target, that is low, or to start a fight where you know you can actually kill the target. Because double casting a full life Ornn with like 200 armor won't do shit. So it would be better to just fast combo him and use your W and E to dodge his knockup, for example. So always think about when to double cast. Let's act like the Skullcrab is a low life ADC or enemy mid laner, and I'm also low life, and walking to him, trying to fast Q him would kill me, not him, because I wouldn't reach him fast enough. So a combo you could do would be E into your RQ double cast, then flash onto him, W, auto attack, wind slash. It sounds long, but the combo isn't as hard as you think.
There is no other way.
So that would be then the combo to kill someone. That would be low life. And they couldn't even react to it because you stunned them, right? With the flash stun.
I am awakened.
And don't forget the auto attacks, guys. Unless he's hyper low, then obviously you can skip the auto attack. It would just waste your time. So if you want to do that, but you don't want to do the flash part because it's unnecessary, you can obviously do that. You can just go to him and don't use flash. Should also do the trick. I nearly flash because it's like muscle memory to flash. And that's it actually. You don't need any more combos for the next 200 hours of playing Riven. You need your fast combos down. You need all the double casts I showed you. You need the wall hops with the double casts. And you could, if you want, learn this combo I showed you in the end with the Skullcrab. But that's basically it. You don't need anything else. Just focus on those few things. Get them down. Don't learn an insane combo and force yourself to do it. Because those combos just work in specific situations. Now to the next part. I will tell you what items you can build and how the item build changes depending on the lane you're playing. So what roles can you play Riven on actually? Well, if you're crazy, you can play her in all roles, but mainly she's obviously a top laner. Taking her in the mid lane with a different build is also mega fun. I like doing that. And if you know how to jungle, you could even play her in the jungle, but I suck playing jungle, so I never do that. But at least try it out if you're a jungler, but don't blame me if you shouldn't. But she was, back in the days, she was also really viable in the jungle. I need my jungle mates in the comments to tell me if it's still possible. If you should decide to go on top lane, you can go with a traditional build, which is buying Eclipse almost always as your first item. After that, you can go Sundered Sky, which is actually my favorite item in this season, or Black Cleaver if your enemy laner is stacking armor, and after that you can be a bit more flexible after your first two items. Either go with Spear of Sojin, that will give you a bit more HP and help you with your cooldowns. But if the enemy has a lot of AD or AP, you can go with Hexdrinker or Death Dance. I wouldn't upgrade Hexdrinker to more. You can do it later in the game, but I would just buy the Hexdrinker or go for Death Dance if I need some resistances. I personally also like to go Profane Hydra if I'm a bit ahead, just to get more map pressure with all the wave clear you got with Profane Hydra. Oh, and Styrax is kind of broken, so you could also go with Styrax as your third or fourth item. Now to mid lane Riven. I think it's kind of underrated. It's actually hyper fun to play mid lane Riven. It's played more like an assassin than a bruiser, which almost completely changed the item build, which is kind of cool. I like that about Riven, that you can just switch to assassin and she still kind of works. You can still go with Eclipse on mid lane because Eclipse just works too good with Riven's overall kit. But after that, you should go with Profane Hydra into Edge of Night or Humus. Humus also works really good with Riven. Syria's Christ is also an option against a bit more slippery teams. And you can still go with Hexdrinker or Death Dance on mid lane. Well, as you can see, Riven has a lot of options when it comes to items. After the first two items, you should analyze the enemy team and your team to decide what items you want to buy next. So don't just buy the same build over and over again without thinking about it. Always think why you need a specific item. So the next thing would be talking about matchup dependent changes and runes. I will not go in too much detail because else this video would be way too long and I would rather keep it short so I don't overwhelm you with too much information. So as I said before, your runes, mostly the secondary runes, will change depending on your enemy. First, I'm going to give an example with a default top lane matchup like Ornn, for example. If you lane against Ornn or any other tank really, you can go with the default rune page, which is Conqueror and Sorcery with Nimbus Cloak and Transcendence. So you might ask why you should not go Resolve in this matchup, because Resolve is actually also a really good rune on Riven. It is actually pretty easy to understand why you should not go Resolve in this matchup, because a champion like Ornn will not have any real kill pressure on Riven unless you int completely, and after Ornn's first or second back, when he comes back to the lane with armor, you also lose like 90% of your kill pressure on him. So going with runes that will help you to scale to the mid to late game, like Transcendence, is a way better choice than going with sustain runes when you are not even in real danger of getting killed. So if the matchup is even, you can't really go wrong with Sorcery. But what to do if the matchup is not even, or you want to get a cheesy level 1 or 2 kill? Well, then you can go with Resolve as your secondary rune. If you should have a matchup where you think you will lose the trades, which will happen a lot if you start playing Riven recently, then you should go with Resolve with Shield Bash and Bone Plating. Let me give you an example so you understand it a bit better. If you lane against Sett and you took Sorcery, and Sett pulls you with his E and hits both his Qs, then you are as good as dead. But if you take Bone Plating instead, then his E and most importantly his Qs will not not deal any real damage. But bone plating also works the other way around. For example, Darius. I know a lot of new Riven players hate going against Darius, but it is actually possible to kill him level 1. You just need to stack your passive with delaying your Qs and use the third Q to proc his bone plating, and then you just auto attack him until your Q is up again and finish him with a fast combo and ignite. If you do it correctly and don't fuck up, he will not have enough damage to kill you because of your bone plating. Unless he's a Darius one trick, then don't try that, then you will die. So as you can see, you can use bone plating defensively in matchups where you will lose the trades, or you can use it more offensively in matchups where you want to get the early kill. But don't get me wrong though, you can still go a second wind instead of bone plating, which I actually like to do in matchups where there's a lot of poke, like Teemo or Cannon or Quinn or Vayne or any ranged top laner. I would really recommend going second wind and Doran shield in that. The main runes on mid lane are Domination with Altitude, Sudden Impact, Eyebrow Collection, and Ultimate Hunter, but you still can go with Conqueror against more beefier mid laners, like Diana for example. For your secondary runes, the same rule from before applies. If the enemy has a lot of poke, like Akshan, you go second wind. And if the enemy has a good all-in, like Silas for example, with his pull, you go bone plating. And in any other situation, you can just stick to sorcery and switch Nimbus Cloak for Nullifying Orb if the enemy has 2 to 3 AP champions, or you feel unsafe against a specific AP matchup. All in all, you can't really go wrong with sorcery or resolve. Don't buy blindly the same item builds over and over again. Look at your enemy laner and look at your enemy team, and then decide what to build next or what rune page to take in this matchup. Well, that's it. I hope you learned something new today that will help you in your Riven journey. But remember though, maining Riven is not an easy task, so don't get mad if you should have a lot of bad games in a row. If you really dedicate a lot of time into her, it will pay off sooner or later, so don't get discouraged. And if you're an experienced Riven player that for whatever reason watched this video, let me know in the comments what I missed that you might think is important for new Riven players. Maybe it will help out someone. So if you enjoyed this video, consider liking or even subscribing, and see you next time. Ciao!